words on leadership, goal setting, productivity, and a whole lot more. I trust today this will be like a vitamin or supplement for your mind and heart. And wherever you receive podcasts from, would you please subscribe to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom? Leave a rating and a brief written review. It would be very helpful, enabling others to locate this podcast. Today I want to talk about discouragement, especially discouragement in the area of leadership. These are discouraging times, and today's podcast is going to be a little bit more overtly Christian. I was reminded in a sermon that I preached and pre-recorded yesterday of one of my favorite promises from the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 10, where the Apostle Paul, under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, says, there is no temptation that has taken you or come to you but what is common to humanity. And God is faithful. He will not allow you to be tempted above what you can bear, but with that temptation will make a route of escape. And right now, everyone is discouraged, it seems like. I think even the most optimistic among us have moments of maybe nearly overwhelming sadness. And so let's think about how do we handle this discouragement of where we are now. I think the first thing is you have to acknowledge it. Someone has said that discouragement hurts. Let's just acknowledge that many folks are really hurting. I read an author one time who said that the discouraging times in his life have turned out to be bittersweet. They're bitter while you're going through it, and there's a little bit of sweetness that comes when you get through it, when you see the hand of God and you've learned some lessons. And so using what Paul said about temptation, what we're facing right now, I think one of the first things we just need to take a step back and realize we are not being picked on. Everyone goes through difficulties. Everyone goes through a trying time. And those of you in leadership capacities, this is the time that we really do look to our leaders. So I think one of the things that you really have to ask yourself when you're in an unusual time is ask yourself the why question. Why am I where I am? Why do I do what I do? Even if we are out of our routines and things aren't as they always are, why? Why is it that I get up every day? Why do I do what I do? Here's a question I started asking myself within the last week. And the people that I'm talking about are no longer with me, but I'm asking myself as I'm facing some of these difficult situations, things where I have never been before, trying to not only navigate the waters myself, but in attempting others to navigate it, I've asked myself this question: what would my mentors do if they found themselves in this same situation? Now, I can't call them anymore and ask them, but I begin to think about them and how they handled things in their lives and what would my mentor do? And if that person that is still with us, that is yours, why don't you give them a call or send them an email and a text and ask them, what would you do? All right, what are we going to do to get through this time, to push through the discouragement and the feeling of how are we getting through this and how will we get through it? I would say find some easy wins. One of the things that I made up my mind I was going to do early on in this situation, that I was going to get up like I always do and do some of my morning routines, which involves Bible reading, prayer, some other reading, some journaling. I'm going to continue to do those. I'm also one of those who decided I'm not going to walk around the house all day in my pajamas. Now, if that's who you are, a good God bless you, go for it. But I think to give our lives some normalcy, let's get up, get dressed, wash your face, comb your hair. I don't have to spend much time on that. But let's find some easy wins. The idea would be maybe this is a downtime that you can clean your garage or clean a closet. I have never mowed my lawn 3 times this early in the spring. I'm not sure it's because my lawn necessarily needed it. I needed something to do. I think one of the other things that you need to do right now is find someone to talk to. For all the times that this could have happened, it's happening in a time when we are more electronically connected, be it electronic meetings, be it texting, be it emailing, be it phone call. Let's talk to someone. I have discovered in my own lives that things don't seem nearly as bad when I talk to someone. Now, I'm spending time obviously talking to the Lord, and my wife and I are together when she's not at the hospital working. And so there's someone to talk to. I have made it my pattern that every other week I'm talking to my pastors. I call every pastor. I don't want anything. I just ask them how they are doing. We're having a Zoom meeting a week where we bring leaders on to kind of help us with certain things. But isolation, we can allow ourselves to become so isolated that it just lends itself to some really emotional, mental, spiritual health issues. So take time out and find someone to talk to. A couple of years ago, a year and a half ago, when I really committed myself to exercise and health, I soon discovered that as important as exercise is for your physical health, it probably helped my mental and emotional health. Last year, Suzanne and I were going through a few difficult family and work-related situations that were indeed stress-inducing. And I found out the greatest stress reliever was exercise. And so I think my neighbors may think at times I've lost my mind because my backyard is fenced in. And sometimes in the evening when I'm out with my dogs, I will make certain laps around the inside of my fence just to do and have some movement. I would also advise you, I'd gotten out of this habit when this first started. I'm trying to get back into it. And that is, as much as possible, keep to your regular going to bed time. I know everybody is binging on Netflix or something else. I'm finding the more media that I take in, the more anxious I'm becoming. So I pretty well am going on a fast of that. I have found a program of Bible reading and devotional reading. And I'm finding that if I feed my mind and my heart positive, affirming messages, it's much better than getting caught up in all the political nonsense and all the blame and pointing fingers. I'm going to sleep at the regular time. I'm making sure that I get exercise. But I mentioned it in an earlier podcast. I'm also being a little more realistic. I've had to adjust the kinds of things that I work on and the goals that I work on. I'm being more realistic. I am still putting down 3 things I want to accomplish today. One was recording this podcast. A couple of others I've already done. Be realistic, but still have something where you're trying to make progress. Oftentimes I have mentioned Jeff Olson's book, The Slight Edge, and Darren Hardy's book, The Compound Effect. The greatest truths that I learned from those 2 gentlemen was that we all think we have to do big things to make big changes. If you and I will just make positive, incremental, consistent changes in our lives, over time, it is multiplied into having a huge result. And I think even some of the little things that I have been talking about to you are things that just make some easy changes. So be realistic. Don't expect more out of your kids. You're not going to get as much accomplished as you would if we were in a more real situation of what our usual lives are like. Can I give you some other advice? It's too soon to quit. Discouragement can lead to people just giving up. I'm getting emails from people who I've been in relationship with who've lost their jobs. There are others who are battling for their lives. This is a perilous time, but it's never a time to quit. That would why I would circle back to say to you, maybe the best thing you can do if you're discouraged today is look for another discouraged person, not to commiserate on how miserable everything is. We all already understand that. Look for a discouraged person to encourage. Here's my challenge for you, my friends, today. Before you go to bed tonight, find 2 people that you can encourage. Now, again, you may not be able to go outside and find them, but find them in your contacts, someone who needs to hear from you, a family member or a friend, where you can just say, hey, I'm thinking about you, and we're going to make it. Here's the other thing I think we need to do when we're in a difficult time is count your blessings. What do you have to be thankful for today? If you have a job, you are in a group that really needs to give thanks. If you have your health, if you have just lots of things, we can be thankful for the Lord. Let's not just count all of the losses. I think right now there's an overwhelming sadness in our world. I think there are times, let's just be really candid, there are even times in my life where I have this feeling of sadness, of thinking about what I get. You have to understand, I'm an extrovert. And when my wife goes to work, I can talk to my dogs and I can talk to the walls and I can talk to the fence out back. But after a while, they're not overly responsive or thrilled with my speeches. I was raised in a family where we hugged and kissed and embraced. And if you went to the store to buy a loaf of bread, when you came home, you were greeted like you came home from war. And now, you're without almost any human contact. But find someone who's discouraged and encourage them. Sit down and thank God for what you really have. Here's the other thing I want you to do. Don't focus on some solutions. We all know what the problem is. We all know the problem is huge, it's large, it's bigger than all of us. Focus on a solution. And right now, this may be a time for you to read things you've never read before. This is a time for you to prepare your spirit and your mind for the future. Here's what I know, having lived these years. Discouragement comes to everyone. And there's no doubt, let's just admit it, this is a discouraging place right now, but it's not hopeless. If you have the Lord in your life, it's never, ever hopeless. So yes, at times I'm discouraged, and I know that you are, but it's not ever hopeless. So right now, let's not just completely live in isolation. Let's reach out. Do you remember your assignment? Remember, you're not going through anything right now, but people all over the world are with you. They're going through it. Look for the ways of escape that God is providing. And one of those is find some easy wins. Take the time today. Don't just hide in a cocoon. Get out on the phone or wherever you need to be and talk to someone. Not to just complain about what's going on, but to talk to someone to give them a word of encouragement. Get some sleep. One of the most spiritual things you might be able to do right now is to get some rest. Get some exercise. Do not let this define you. This is not your defining moment. God bringing us through will be our defining moment. So to all of you who may be a little bit discouraged, I want you to know, hang on. There's hope in the Lord Jesus Christ. You're going to get through this. And my leadership friends, you're doing better than you think you are. You really are. And hang in there. Life does happen to everyone, but God's going to bring us through, and we'll take the bitter and turn it into the sweet through His help. You have a great and blessed day.